This video reviews the composition step, which processes the data within the layout of the Fusion Pro template to generate an output for print. To support the many types of printing devices in the most efficient way, Fusion Pro can compose 10 different VDP output formats and can also generate individual JPEGs. The purpose of each optimized output is to identify reused components, allowing the RIP to process them only once. This is vital for image data as it requires much more time to process than text. While there is no limit to the number of records VDP Creator can compose, larger compositions may be better output with Fusion Pro Producer or Server, which is one of the reasons for the final step in the build process and the subject of our next video, collecting files for output. The one universal output format that anyone can print or deliver digitally is PDF, which is why this video will mainly focus on this output composition. Let's get started. By activating the preview, we have been able to dynamically test the functionality of the template, but now it's time to generate the records for print or digital delivery. Before we compose the template, if you have not already saved the document, please do so now. Click the Compose step on the Steps palette or the icon of a page with the red arrow on the sidebar to open the Composition menu. Along the top of the menu is a series of tabbed sections, which manage the wide variety of options available for output composition. The first section is Compose, where the top summarizes the current data source. The Change Data Source option opens the data definition wizard, which walks through the first step that we did in the template build. This might be useful if using a data file with a different delimiter, replacing an old data set, or replacing test data that was used for the build. Just below that, there is a file path and name, where you may browse to the desired output location and adjust the file name as needed. By default, the output will point to the working folder and will use the name of the data source with -output at the end. Of course, the file type will vary depending upon the format selected. Next, there is the drop-down offering those output formats. When selected, certain outputs will activate the field to select and directly send the output to a printer. As indicated, we will be using PDF. At the bottom are settings to send the output composition to Fusion Pro Producer or Server, but we will be composing the output with Fusion Pro VDP Creator. Let's move to the next tab on the menu, Input. This section also provides the same summary and option to change the data source, but it also provides a button to change the input options for the template, which are the fields, resources, and rules. If this were a series of outputs or similar but different output, Input Options allows for changes to the variables and/or resources without having to go back into the template. The option to change the input file avoids having to walk through the entire data definition wizard by providing a quick file selection to switch the data source, assuming it uses the same delimiter. On the left side of the menu are buttons to specify the input records to be composed. If you just want to compose a small batch for testing, use the To and From fields to set a range. But in this case, I want to output all the records. Just below that is a checkbox to ignore record repeat during composition. Some templates might repeat all or specific records more than once. This allows a test composition to run without those duplicates. The Output tab also provides the same file path with the options to name and browse to a desired location for the composition. The list of output formats is presented again, but this section provides a button to specify the settings for outputting as JPEGs. The settings area for the other formats will vary depending upon the output selected. Make the selections as needed. The bottom provides a way to break up large record compositions into smaller chunks. For example, if I had 10,000 records, I could set it to compose 1 to 1,000, then 1,001 to 2,000, and so on. This way, the next phase of the production process can get started while Fusion Pro composes the next chunk and reduces the idle time for each device involved. The Imposition tab manages details for outputting on an imposition or onto a custom size sheet. Fusion Pro Imposer is a great utility that comes with your installation of Fusion Pro. Imposer can read the template to render the print layout on a specified sheet size with appropriate spacing, crop marks, and slug info for the item being composed. Check the box to activate the Browse function, where a Fusion Pro Imposer file may be selected. Below that are settings for the output, some of which are read from the FPI file, but allow for modifications nonetheless. As an alternate to an imposed output, a custom size can be specified. The custom option still allows for the settings above to be used, so color bars, crop marks, and page info may be applied. The last section on this tab offers slipsheet controls, which can be used to mark stacks or specified records. Moving to the Graphics tab, controls here manage the images involved in the composition. There are checkboxes to manage the downsampling, suppression of the static art in the PDF, and any annotations from the original layout. Below those are settings to get the ideal rendering for the drop shadow and embossing text effects. The last item on the tab is a button to open the menu for managing personalized images in the composition and/or preview of the template. Look for a video specifically on the use of Fusion Pro expressions and personalized images with Fusion Pro. The JDF tab provides a setup for using job definition format files when the composed output is ready to be produced. This process is specific to the software and hardware involved in the production of the job. For more information regarding JDF use with Fusion Pro, look to the user guide. The Doc Info tab allows for the definition of a title, subject, author, and keywords for the output composition. This information appears in the CFG file generated in the output, but the information also appears in Acrobat when you go to File, Properties, and go to the Description tab. Fusion Pro has also been enhanced to support accessibility features. One of those allows for the document title to be retained, which is required for a digitally provided PDF to be considered accessible. Fusion Pro provides security settings for the output, where a password can be set up to allow any of the restricted settings listed. Switching to the final tab, the Advanced section manages issues that may arise during composition. 4 options are available in the Abort on Errors dropdown. Do Not Abort will complete the composition, indicating the records and errors in the output log file, which is the .msg file. A minor error could be a wide variety of things, but an example might be truncated text for a frame. Medium errors could be something like a rule not returning a value. And a severe error would be missing resources or a callback rule unable to complete its task. When any of the error selections occur, you may choose to skip the record with the error or stop composition. Again, the MSG file will indicate the records and respective errors, so they can be addressed. I will choose Do Not Abort. The search path field may be used to identify a location for Fusion Pro to look for relevant assets that might be needed in the composition. An example might be that when building the template, a handful of image resources were copied down for the build. But now, the actual data composition will need to access the hundreds of images needed to complete the output. When using hyphenation, different languages apply different rules, so Fusion Pro provides a language selection to be used for the hyphenation rule set. There is a checkbox to adjust any copy-fitted text to an integer. Some RIPs cannot manage fonts scaled down to using decimals, so rounding is used to make it an integer. Finally, a checkbox for using standard Mac Roman or Latin characters is checked by default. If your data contains characters in languages other than Latin, be sure to activate your system's Unicode font for interpreting the language's characters. Once all adjustments have been established, click the Save button. Finally, click Compose, and Fusion Pro's Composition Status menu will open to show the progress. While running, it will show errors as they occur. When finished, the Status menu will offer 3 options. Close the menu, view the log, which shows the errors along with the names and locations of everything composed, but I want to view the PDF output. Within Acrobat, you can see the variable data composed into the PDF. By default, all records will generate into one document. So change the page display to see the front-back combo, and switch pages to see each record. One thing to notice is that you will now have 2 PDFs, the output version with the composed content, and the PDF template, which is the build version. Both are important, but for very different reasons. In our case, the composed PDF is ready for print production. And the template, which we can use again with a different data set or to assist in building a similar template for a different job. That concludes this video on composing an output for a Fusion Pro template. Next, we look at collecting files to send to another device for composition or for upload for versioning within a marketing asset management tool like MarcomCentral. Thanks for watching.